The future is two things at the same time: highly autonomous and AI driven, for sure, and deeply human. And so, how do we accomplish the deeply human part? And the answer is we get together in person. Like, this is great, but it'd be better if we were sitting around a fire pit drinking a glass of bourbon. And so, how do we create those environments? Well, creating your own event is one way to do that, especially for people who may be agency leaders and owners who are listening. One of the best ways for you to grow your agency is to get on stages, other people's stages like this. I'm on y'all's podcast, or create your own stage. It could be a virtual stage, like creating your own podcast, or in my case, creating our own event.
Very excited about today's show. Obviously, we know Jay for a very long time, and we just spent a week with him down in St. Augustine for the Agency Builders event. And both Jody and I came away from that blown away. Just so much information, such good discussions, and just a really good group of people. And Jay is probably the best host I've ever seen. Like, he just knows how to make everybody feel welcome and at home. So really appreciate you coming on, Jay. And won't you just give a quick background for our listeners again, because I think your resume could probably take up the full 30 minutes. But just give us a brief summary here real quick of what you're doing right now.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I love to do what I get to do. I've run a marketing agency my whole life since I was 17. So next month is actually 27 years in business. I don't feel like I'm even 27 years old in my heart, but apparently I am. I know, that's right. And then we've launched this agency community probably 6 years ago now. This past April was our 5th annual retreat that we've done, and it just keeps growing little by little every year. And it's just such an awesome thing to get together with people who really believe in collaboration over competition, and going, hey, how can we just help each other? Because it's a big blue ocean out there with lots of opportunity. And I always say wisdom is learning from somebody else's mistakes. And so I think that is kind of what we've collected, is these group of folks who are willing to share ideas, and there's no secrets. It's just like, here's what I'm doing. Take what works, leave what doesn't, and go from there.
I'm going to warn you. So I went to another event last week, and a lot of people were asking what events we'd been to. And I kind of talked your event up a lot. So you may get like 10, 12, 15 people requesting, oh, when's the next event? Because I was definitely talking it up and they're writing down the name. I know it's tough, not a tough group to get into, but it's definitely a group of people you're close with and respect. But there might be some people listening, or people I talked to at that event that were reaching out to. So you want to tell them a little bit about like the origins of the event and the story. I know it's a fun story we've heard a couple of times, but maybe the listeners would love to hear it. And then also for people that might want to attend, how do they get a hold of you?
It's interesting. It relates to the bourbon conversation that we started with before the show even really officially began, because it was me and 5 other guys sitting around in an Airbnb. We were up in Nashville at a Story Brand event that Don Miller was putting on. And it's an awesome community, but we wanted more agency focused, similar sized, and similar belief structures too. Like for me, it's not all about how do I grow a 7, 8, 9 figure agency. I know how to make money. And I think a lot of people do, but the hard part is actually doing that while also staying married to my wife, while also having good relationships with my kids. And I got 5 kids that are 13 to 21, and so a lot of similar, camaraderie of that conversation, sitting around drinking some good bourbon. I think it was a Bardstown. I don't remember specifically which one. So that shows me I'm not a good enough bourbon snob to remember that yet, but it was delicious. And we thought, we need more of this. And I said, well, I live down in St. Augustine Beach. It's a pretty nice place. We got a beautiful hotel right on the ocean. What if we just throw a little event? And they're like, great, let's do it. So we planned one for the next spring when it was still snowing in half the country and 75 degrees and sunny in Florida. And we had about 30 or so leaders there. It cost me many thousands of dollars because I didn't know how to run an event profitably at the time. And I was like, all right, well, that was fun. And they're like, well, when's next year? I'm like, we're not doing next year. That was a one-time fun thing, and y'all are welcome. And they're like, no, we'll pay more. You can get sponsors. You'll figure it out. And I'm like, fine, we'll do next year. And then, same kind of thing. One year led to another, and 30 people turns into 50, and 50 turns into 100, and 100 turns into 100 plus. And now we're in a place 5 years in where we go, gosh, we either have to restrict the total number of people to what we had this year, because the room was basically packed, or open the ballroom up a whole nother layer and have another 50 or 100 people, to fill all that up, which is probably what we're going to end up doing. And it's a good problem to have. I've not tried to like scale it into a thing. It's probably historically been a little bit more of a hobby for me than my main business, for sure. But it's become a thing where it's like, man, people are into this and they need community that isn't just focused on how do I make more money. That too, for sure, because My uncle always says everything's funny when you're making money, and that's kind of true. Maybe not everything, but most things are. And so you need to be profitable, no question. But how do we do that while also, you know, dealing with the massive change in the industry? How do we do that while also staying married? If we're married, how do we do that while having good relationships with our kids or friends or neighbors or whoever else it may be?
Yeah, the cool thing about the timing of your event is it's always about a month and a half before our team retreat. And so the whole time we're sitting there, Jody's like, "Oh, you need to do that at the retreat. You need to do that at the retreat." I think that's a lot of what I talk about you being a great host. Like, for those that weren't there, when you walk in, there's a cool video playing on the big screens. And then the conference starts with this awesome AI made rock video that has like characters in it that are
Yeah.
going to speak. And it's just going from there. And then during every break, there's a video. And like, that's, just looking at how the production value of your event was like, okay, I got to do that at our next retreat. And so we definitely went down that road for our retreat in May. And the same thing happened last year. Like there was things you presented about and talked about. I'm like, yep, we're doing that at our retreat. And then some of your speakers are so good and so professional. I think Jody's sitting there taking notes for his opening speech of like, okay, this is what I'm going to talk about. This is what I'm going to say. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about how you put on an event and how you always come up with new ideas to make it just so crisp and so clean looking.
Well, I think events like anything else are, well, first of all, why an event? Because I think some people listening might go, well, I'm not in the event business. But here's the reality. I actually think everybody should be, especially in this new world. I've been saying a lot lately, and I said it at Agency Builders Retreat, that the future is two things at the same time: highly autonomous and AI driven, for sure, and deeply human. And so how do we accomplish the deeply human part? And the answer is we get together in person. Like, this is great, but it'd be better if we were sitting around a fire pit drinking a glass of bourbon. It just would be. And so how do we create those environments? Well, creating your own event is one way to do that. And so, especially for people who may be agency leaders and owners who are listening, one of the best ways for you to grow your agency is to get on stages, other people's stages like this. I'm on y'all's podcast, or create your own stage. It could be a virtual stage, like creating your own podcast, or in my case, creating our own events. We actually ran 2 events that week. The first half of the week was called Future Focused Leaders. That was for our clients, prospects, friends, and neighbors. The second half of the week was Agency Builders Retreat. And the way I think about running a great event, to answer your actual question, is that I just look at what other people do. I don't need to reinvent the wheel. There are people who do better events than me. I got the great honor of speaking at Dave Ramsey's Entre Leadership Summit last week, and they're like the best in the business. I mean,
Yeah.
every one of their speakers is basically the A-list keynoter somewhere else. I mean, they'll go back to back with like John Maxwell, Simon Sinek, and Patrick Lencioni like it's nothing, which is crazy because any other event, one of those guys would be there. And in their case, they just bring many of them. And so I got to be on that stage. And a lot of what I do is try and look at their type of event and go, how can I model this down? So they're probably running, if my estimates are right, a $15 to $20 million event. Well, I'm certainly not doing that. And so I can't do everything that they're doing, but I can take elements of it and go, how can I scale this down into my own version? So we talk a lot about AI in the agency world right now. So creating a fun opening AI video made a lot of sense to me this year. The tech's finally good enough that it can be cool enough and interesting enough that it actually adds value versus just being kitschy. Where in past years, we've created kind of what you would see as standard intro videos. But I've stole most of that from how Dave does Entre Leadership Summits because I just watch their scale and you're just excited when the thing starts. And I think the other advantage I have is I also get to work at a very large church. And so there's 15 campuses. We're running multiple services with thousands of people every single week. And I get to learn from like how programs are put together, when we decide to do what. And we've done big conferences there too, like men's conferences, women's conferences, church leaders summits, things like that. And so I can see that at scale, again, with much larger budgets than what I have with agency builders. But like anything, you can usually create a scaled back version that works for you. And any sized event, whether you've got 50 people there or 10,000 people, it needs most of the same elements. Like you got to have name badges. You got to have a way for people to check in. You probably need something to have at their seat, ideally something new each day. It's great to have an intro video because it just creates a little bit of hype. If you can get some, like this year, I spent more money having more videographers, photographers, all of that at the event And so now I have much better resources for next year because I can leverage all that content both in promotion to the up to the event, but also in creating intro videos, countdown timers, all that kind of stuff for screens.
So it's almost like a giant nesting doll. Like you steal from Dave Ramsey, I steal from you. It just keeps going from there. And I will tell you, I want to thank you because we were at a pretty big resort down in Vegas for our retreat, and we had the hotel staff who see these things all the time. They're coming into our event. They were taking pictures of how we set it up. They're taking pictures of our videos. They're like, wow, this is a well put on event. And like you said, like our scale is definitely a lot less than yours. We have about 60 people, and our budget is obviously for internal event, but a lot I stole from you. So definitely
But
wanted
even
to
I think about it,
there.
The other big thing too, and I know that this is true, is having a great team to help pull it off makes such a huge difference.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Stacy, who has been with me for almost a decade at this point in the office, she's technically our office admin / bookkeeper / event manager / whatever else she can get into. But she's so detailed oriented, and I'm not. I'm the big. What if we could do this? And she's like, yeah, we're not doing that, but we could do this instead. And she'll find a way to make that happen. And I just know with her and I working together, I can cast this big vision idea. I'm also really good when things don't go the way I need them to. I'm very comfortable with that on stage or anywhere else. But she can handle all the detailed checklists. And then every year I have multiple team members who are walking around going, I want you to make a list of everything that could have been better. For example, this year, one of the breakout rooms didn't have a timer cards in the back for some reason. I think there was a printer snafu or whatever. But as a result, one of the breakouts ran a little bit long, which kind of jacked up the schedule for the next session. And most people didn't notice it too much, but those are the kind of things that really annoy me. And so that's on a list. So next year, there will be printed. I think they're already printed. There'll be printed cards in the back of the other breakout room. And we do that across every category. Last year, the names on the name badges were too small, but next year, I actually want to do nicer name badges where the double clip so they don't spin around the whole time, and you can put the schedule on the back and the names always stays on the front. But it's little things like that. Those name badges cost a little more, but we're making a list every year going, what could we make better? And it only has to be a little bit better so that people that come every year, which a lot of people do, go, oh man, this is new. And that helps people feel like it doesn't get stale, because that's the risk of running the same event at the same venue, which we do pretty much every year, is it could just get okay, I've already done this. And so how do I make it fresh every year? Part of that's content, part of it's structure, but part of it is those fun little things that you can just make little pieces better.
Yeah, I also think part of it's people. So I think the nice thing about your model is that you have, every time I go, I see a lot of familiar faces. I see a lot of people that I can, walk up to at the bar and just start talking to right away because I've seen them 3 or 4 years in a row now. And so I can have those conversations. But then I also talk to enough people that this is their first event. And so I think that also is what makes it fresh, is that it is a good mix of returning people and new people. And I think that's a credit to you that you can get so many people returning. We just lost Jody, but he was messaging me his internet's a little low, so you and I can keep talking here. Good. But it's a credit to you because you get people to return. That wouldn't happen if you didn't have so many people that wanted to return because you put on a good event, but you also find the right people that return. The people that return aren't just there as participants. They're there having great conversations, and they have the right mindset, which is really great.
Yeah, my uncle always told me, he said, the best way to grow a business, and this is true, agency builders, I really consider a community more than a business, but it is a business. It's now a profitable business after multiple years, and I love doing it. But he always said the best way to grow a business is to do a great job for somebody, ask them to tell somebody else, and you'll never run out of business. And that's just referral-based marketing. But also, I would say, when you think about marketing as a whole, and we all know this, those people that are marketers on the call, all of our other assets, whether it's our website, social media, any other way that somebody sees us, that's going to make somebody more likely or less likely to buy from me. And so the way the Agency Builders has grown is pretty much 100% organic. We've not done paid ads. We've not done big promotions. We've got some social accounts. We got a website. It keeps getting a little bit better, but we're not pouring massive resource into it. We're just letting it organically grow. And that's my favorite way to grow a thing anyway. That's how I've grown Business Builders for 27 years.
Yeah, no, and it's, again, you can tell that everybody there has a connection and has the similar mindset, including the speakers. And that's kind of the next thing I want to talk about is, like, I think you at your event, especially for the size of your event, like your speakers are the best pound for pound speakers I see, like for the size event it is. And so what is your screening process for speakers? And then how do you make sure that the topics make sense?
Yeah, it's funny. The first year or two, I had to like beg my friends to come do talks because nobody wants to come talk at an event where there's nobody showing up at it, or at least a very small number. Maybe not nobody, but I would just say I don't just want anybody. I want somebody who's actually going to provide significant value. And the balance is always one of the things I've learned at Entree Leadership is they don't they'll occasionally let somebody put a QR code or something like that up on the screen to get a free resource as a speaker, but none of their speakers are selling from stage.
Right.
And they can do that because the ticket price for that event is 3 to 10 grand. It's an expensive event and they got 3,000 people there. So just in ticket sales, they're doing 10 to 12 million probably. And so, when I think about how we intake speakers, we have a speaker form on the website. People submit entries, but really I get feedback from other people that I know who have heard that person speak before. And the only ones that have ever bit me are the ones who I've never seen on stage before, but that's pretty rare. I try to bring a mix of people who are familiar, like I'm usually going to do a keynote myself. Tyler Pygott, him and I have worked with this for a long time, is usually going to do some kind of a keynote. And then occasionally we'll bring in other people who have also spoke before but have new topics. And then I'm usually trying to bring in a couple of new ones as well. And then on that programming side, that's something I've learned too is figuring out where to put the right talk, because before lunch and after lunch are different things. And should we have breakout sessions and how many? And I think mixing that up matters a lot because sometimes you just pack a room and just put speaker after speaker after speaker on stage, and it can get pretty exhausting. And so mixing that up a little bit, I've found has a lot of value.
Yeah, I could tell you're very thoughtful with the order and the people you have because yeah, it's definitely an event where, and again, I'm not even a marketing person, but I sit there and I walk away with 10 pages of notes and all these ideas. And this year you had a speaker talk about thought leadership and she was amazing. And I was like, I wish, because it's something that at Anders, Jody and I and the rest of the team are trying to educate Anders about thought leadership because it's something that we believe strongly in. It's the way we've always operated. And, not all marketers go down that path. And I'm like, man, I wish half our marketing team was here because this is genius. Like this is the best description of thought leadership I've ever heard. And I mean, again, you have speaker after speaker just knows their topic and does a really good job presenting it.
Well, I think about it like the thought leadership stuff as an example. I mean, that's how I ended up on the Entree Leadership stage. I mean, there's multiple pieces to it. People are like, how do you end up on a stage that big that Dave Ramsey and his team are going to trust you? And it's a couple of things. One, I went to my first event with them 14 years ago. And so I've built relationships with their team over time. So they know me personally. However, I've not actually been to one of their events in quite a few years because of all the new work I've taken on in the ministry sector and just haven't had the bandwidth for it schedule wise, even though they're my favorite events. And that said, I've been blowing up my social content with discussion around AI, how AI is going to affect agencies, how we're going to use it, how we should think about it as highly human or a highly autonomous and deeply human. And because of all that content, as a thought leader, for lack of a better term, their executive director at Entree said, "Hey, we're looking for somebody to come talk about AI. We know you know the Entree leadership community. We know you know this subject. Would you come be on stage?" And I'm like, yeah, I'd love to. And so those are how those things happen. And so it's also like a good example for our own clients is me posting all that AI content on my Instagram. I don't know. Maybe it has acquired a direct client. But even if it hasn't, what it has acquired is me to be on my dream stage. Because I was on my dream stage, I guarantee you that will produce additional clients, even if it's just related from perceived authority. Because if Dave is willing to put me on his stage, there's some level of elevated trust just from that. And as a result, I'm more likely to close my next deal. And so those are things to think about as we build our agencies is how that thought leadership plays in. And I think it's true for every business. And regardless of what industry that they're in, having some kind of, we're charging forward in whatever the category is that we own. And, Donald Miller always says, you got to own a problem. And the problem for agencies is how are we going to navigate this change into AI? And the truth is, it's not a whole lot different. I saw an article, I think it was David C. Baker that posted it. And it was about how agencies have seen this before. Way back in the day, pre-internet, there were advertising agencies. There have been for a very long time. Many of them did not make the shift and the transition to a digital front to be able to handle digital things, whether it's websites or online ads or whatever else. This is kind of like that transformation
Yeah,
again, but maybe at a
makes
faster
sense.
pace.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I think the hard part on thought leadership for a lot of marketing people is it is a long tail sometimes, right? Like, I just had someone reach out to me that I met in an event 4 years ago, right? We spoke at an event 4 years ago. He reached out to me because sometimes it is just like
Right.
they're waiting for that need of that service, but when they need it, you're the first person they call, because if they're an agency and you need a CFO, like obviously we're experts in that area. And so sometimes it is a long tail, which is a hard thing for marketers to get their hands around sometimes, because they want those MQLs and SQLs to convert quickly. And sometimes it's like, sometimes it's about having that thought leadership, because we'll go to an event and we'll probably have 4 or 5 calls right away, but then sometimes it will be 3 years later, 6 months later, where someone actually
100%.
reaches out to you from that event. So
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. It's like this business is a marathon, I mean, I spent 10 years basically as a solopreneur hiring contractors before I ever hired my first team member, which was roughly 17 years ago. And I'm not trying everybody wants everything quick. I get it. Like we grew up in an Instagram culture where we can click a button and see the next thing. And we can't see the next episode right now. We don't understand that. Certainly my kids
right.
don't. And we don't have patience. And yet we've all read The Tortoise and the Hare, and we all know how it turned out. Like the tortoise won because he's just consistent. And that's the way I think about business growth too, is I'm not trying to double my business this year. Now, at some point many years ago, I was certainly trying to double year over year over year. But now as a multi-million-dollar agency, I don't even think that's necessarily wise or prudent. And it's not my primary objective. It is an objective because everybody wants to make more money. All my team members do too, but it's not the primary objective.
Yeah, no, that's a great way to think about it. And I think it's the right way to think about it too, because anything you try to build fast is always built inaccurately with a lot of problems. And obviously as a CPA, I feel that way, but I do think it's true for business as well. So let's turn the wheel here a little bit, and we have a couple minutes left, but I don't want to have you on and not talk AI. So we have to talk about this. And I learned so much every time I come to your conference. I feel like I'm pretty ahead on AI of most people, but I'm definitely behind you. And it's every time I come in and hear you guys speak, I'm like, wow, I need to speed up here. And I think the best analogy I can use is going back to our retreats. It's like last year at our retreat, the image generation was so cool. Like that was the coolest thing to us. And so we built a 400 deck slide for a 3-day conference, and not one clip art was used. We used only AI generated images, and it was cool because it had all the people from our retreat there, and it was very personalized. And that was a cool step. We were so excited about that. Obviously, this year, a year later, 12 months later, we're using all video. We're using AI generated videos. And that's just how fast this technology is going. And that just shows me like, man, I just have to keep up. And I'm going to blame you a little bit here. So you talked all about the Claude and the Claude code. Last night I was up until about 1:00 in the morning.
Oh no, it's a bad drug.
That's why I was designing a website for my basketball team to like help them like track their stats and track how many shots they're taking during the summer. And I was designing that, which again, I never would have been able to even like think about designing a website 3 months ago. And now I have like a really cool looking website that I'm going to send out to a bunch of teenagers, and they're going to think it's cool because it has our logo on it and their pictures and all that stuff. And that's all thanks to you, because I never would have thought to do that before this event. So if you want to just talk about how you stay up with, how to stay current with all that's happening with AI.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of a cheat for me, I would say, because I love it. So,
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't love this stuff, you probably can't stay up on it right now. I also think that my personality style is probably uniquely suited for it. I'm pretty ADHD and mildly dyslexic. And those traits, I actually believe, are superpowers as it relates to leveraging AI at scale. Because somebody who has those tendencies, if you will, they don't think like everybody else. And the irony is both of those things, ADHD and dyslexia, have been labeled as a disability essentially over time. But when leveraged rightly, they can be a real superpower, because people with certain types of ADHD, specifically like me, are able to actually, they always say like they can't focus. That's not really entirely true. They can actually focus really hyper deep when they're super into something. And so I'm super into AI. Where I get most of my knowledge is on X.com, the artist formerly known as Twitter. And that is like the resource because it moves as fast as everything else, if that makes sense. So it moves faster than anywhere else. So anywhere else I can get data, I'll have people send me articles from like the Wall Street Journal. I'm like, yeah, I knew about that 2 weeks ago, you know?
Yeah.
So for example, as of the time we're recording this, yesterday, Claude released a new model. And inside of that, they released some real crazy nerdy stuff around creating custom workflows for your agents. So before I came on this call, I have a tool that I'm working on called Agency Backpack. That's kind of for running an agency the way I want to run it. And it is wild with this new version of Claude in Claude Code. I activated this, what they call Ultra Code, and a real fancy sounding, and their custom workflows, and it spun up 20 sub agents by itself. So
Oh,
think
wow.
of that as delegating to 20 developers at the same time who have all been now tasked out to accomplish a particular thing. In this case, I wanted to do kind of a full security sweep, a full end-to-end test, build a testing system so that every time we make a change to the app, it can run that testing system. I don't have to worry about breaking stuff. That's a very complicated amount of work. And it knocked all of that out with 20 subagents in 10 minutes. That wasn't possible, at least not easily, without a whole lot of other build 2 weeks ago. And that's the pace that we're moving at. But for me, the way I stay up is X.com. I follow a lot of folks on there. What I like about it versus other social media as well is you can just filter it down to the topic you're actually interested in. So there's a lot of garbage on X for sure, but I'll just filter my feed to AI news, and that's all I get. It's just AI information. And some of it's like, AI bros out there trying to sell courses and everything else.
Of course. Yeah, that's what I find sometimes too.
Yeah, but there's a lot of good info as well when you follow the right folks. And I don't even know the names of most of the people I follow. I just, have a bunch on there, and I'll probably look at it every day, pull out an idea, go test an idea. And I'm testing at a level that I never have before. So last year, for example, one of the many tools we use to build web apps and sites now is called Replit.com. And last year, I built 350 different sites or applications inside of that platform myself. I mean, that's basically one a day. And 80% of those, maybe 90%, are probably junk that just need to be deleted. Yeah. But I always ask people, like, was that a waste of time and money? And the answer is no. Because I watch other people build things in all of those same tools, and they're like, yeah, but it does this. I'm like, oh, yeah. Then you got to do this, then you got to do that. It's a whole new skill set to understand how to communicate with the AI, if you will, with the robots. I like to just call it the robots, with the robots to get them to do what you want. But once you start to develop those skills, the pace that you can move at is just exponential. I'll give you one specific client example from yesterday. We had a client where we've been building this WordPress site for months on end. They're still not happy. We're not happy. They sent a giant revision list, many multiple pages. And our team's basically like, look, this is out of scope. We can't build this in WordPress. It's going to take too much time, take too much money. And I'm like, let me give it a kick around in the Claude Code. And I took our existing WordPress instance plus the client's brand structure, plus all the feedback and the mini page document the client had. And overnight, I built a strong enough prompt that it rebuilt everything that I needed. It did it in the evening before it even got to the night because I was at the gun club while it was building it. Came back to an 80% finished product, spent another hour or so on it. And now the product that we have to show that client is exponentially better than what's been built for months on end. That's insane. Mm-hmm. Now, to be fair, the thing we built months on end has helped lay the framework that I could easily then build what I wanted on top of it. But that's where we're headed. And so the way I stay up is a lot of X.com, but honestly, just a lot of experimenting. Like, I wonder if it could do this. I wonder if it could do that. Let me try this. This didn't work last week. I wonder if it'll work this week. That continual curiosity is the trait I'm looking for in other people as well.
And I think you and I have a very similar personality in that way. Like, I'm not ADHD, but I definitely am dyslexic. And then I'm also, the working genius I took, like, I'm definitely more in the innovator lane versus the inventor lane. And I think that helps me a lot because I can have I'm really good at taking someone else's ideas and making them great. And someone else's ideas can be AI. And that's what I have used it for. Is like, I have
For
this
sure.
kind of good idea, and then it makes it better, then I make it great. And I think AI has allowed me to do that. And I think that's the number one tip I took from you at your conference is just ask it. Like, ask AI, can you do this? Ask the robots, if I want to do this, can you do it? And like, it's crazy to me, like how many problems it can solve, and it just solves it itself. And then again, once you get going, like you just keep asking it more and more questions. I'm good at that. Obviously, I run a podcast, and it's what we do as CFOs. Is we're constantly asking questions. I'm good at asking questions, so I can do that with the robots, and they can build me some really cool stuff. That again, I'm not at 360, but I've probably built 10 to 12 sites since the conference, which was what, like a couple months
Yeah.
ago. So,
Yeah. It
and I'm
was a
not,
month and a half ago.
and I'm not again, I've never thought about doing anything in that realm. And then we're also doing it internally. We have we call our agent 007 that we're designing for all of our team members, that is based in the Microsoft platform that they can just use every day, similar to a Claude Code, and they can just build stuff. It's crazy what people are building. And so, again, I know we're getting close to the end here. Let's keep going down this AI road for our fun stuff, because I want to make sure, you already gave one example. What's the most fun thing you built in the last 2 months with AI?
Most fun thing. Oh, I don't know. I'll tell you the thing that's been most helpful. It's probably not the most fun. It's pretty fun. Yesterday is just I've connected everything to Granola. Granola is my note-taking app. It's constantly taking notes for everything I'm in person or online. And at the end of the day yesterday, Claude Code's connected to that. And so I just said, hey, I had back-to-back meetings all day. I'm like, can you skim my Granola and just see what I promised I would do at the end of all
Yeah.
these calls that I've not done? And it's like, sure. It does it, pulls the whole list. I'm like, okay, can you draft emails to all those people for me? It drafts all the emails. Can you also look at my inbox, see if there's any urgent emails, draft replies to those, which it did. And then this was the first time that I have it dialed in enough that I read through all the draft emails that it put together, some of which required it going and doing research in my Google Drive and past email to find answers to and write it in my tone. But this is the first time that I read all these emails and just pressed send. I didn't actually change a single word. And that, maybe that's not, it's pretty fun, actually. That
That's
was
fun.
very fun.
That's a
At
lot
the
of
end of my
fun.
day, when I'm exhausted after back-to-back calls, and in 15 minutes, I basically knocked out what would have needed to be, 10 some moderately complicated replies. And it just has all the context because it has access to our Google Drive, has access to our email, has access to my Granola. And that type of leverage is just huge.
Yeah, well, what makes that fun is that would have taken you the rest of the night to do. And so you probably got that done early enough where you could go spend time with your family and have dinner and do some fun stuff last
Exactly.
night, because that only took 15
Yeah.
minutes versus 15
I took
hours. And
I
so,
took one of my boys to the gun club, so that was super fun. But I'll tell you, actually, we'll tell you a fun one that I just thought of. ChatGPT's image model has gotten really good. So if you've not
it
tried
has.
ChatGPT's image
Yeah.
model lately, go back and try it. It was okay for a while. It's incredible now. And one of
Yeah.
the things I did, this is a little silly, but I'm trying to just, be in better health, get some better fitness goals. And so I took a picture of myself, dropped it in the ChatGPT, and I said, hey, I want you to give me 2 versions of myself. The first one is if 3 years from now, all I've done is eat absolute junk food every single day. I've been completely sedentary, not had any exercise at all. What do I look like? The other one, I want you to imagine 3 years of elite nutrition and elite fitness and whatever else. What does that look like? And it presents these 2 guys who look like me. And one of
That's
them is
cool.
probably 400 pounds, and really in a bad way. And it was funny because the picture that it took, which I won't show on here, was it was a picture in the bathroom mirror. And so around the sink in the fat guy's photo, which was me, it had like Cheetos and Coke and like a McDonald's wrapper and all this stuff out my sink. And then on the far end was this like super ripped dude, 8-pack, like, I mean, nothing I've ever looked like. And I'm not sure I could look like at this age without some significant drug use. But at the same time, it helped me, it's kind of fun, mentally
Perspective.
go,
Yeah.
all right, my next activity, am I going to work out or not today? Well, which one of those guys would do that? And which one do I want to look more like?
That's
What am I going to eat for lunch?
great.
Which one of these guys would do that? And what would they do? And so that mental image really helped me because I'm a visual learner, so to see myself like actually looks like myself as a 400-pound, 50%, fat ratio, and as a 200-pound, 10% fat ratio. I was like, Okay, I'd like to be more like that guy. As probably would my wife if I asked her.
Right. No, that's a great. Yeah, I do love the image generation that ChatGPT has. Like our whole retreat was Survivor themed this year, and it was pretty cool.
Oh,
Some
that's
of the
cool.
Survivor images we built of like, Jody running through barbed wire and stuff like that. It was pretty cool. Some of the image generation we use, but yeah, I agree that it's definitely up leveled. And it's funny you talked about um the meeting notes. We use Avoma, so I'll record everything I'm in, but I record all my meeting notes. And one of the things I've built in our context assistant, which again we call 007, is a daily, at the end of each day, like a debrief where it tells me, okay, here's the things you promised, here's your to-do list. Make sure it's not like I still like a written to-do list. It's like, but
Sure.
make sure your written to-do list has this. And then each week, I also have a Sunday check-in it gives me where it's like, okay, here's all the things you promised last week. Here's what you got done based on the meetings. It's just pretty cool to have that assistant for me as someone who just like, if you ask anybody I've ever worked with, they've always said my weakness is administrative stuff. I'm just not great at doing administrative stuff, but it does. It's helped me be so much better at that stuff. And people are like, "Oh, wow, you're actually on top of things now." And I'm like, "Well, that's not me. It's 007, but I'll take the credit." But no, yeah, man, it's yeah. So I definitely appreciate, like I said, you've definitely been a motivation to me and inspiration to me in terms of all this AI stuff. And I'm excited to hopefully keep getting invited to your events, because every year I'll walk away and who knows what we'll be building next year. But also appreciate you coming on the show, and sorry you had to talk just to me, and Jody dropped out. His internet was just like died in the middle of the podcast. So
all good. That happened to me yesterday. Well, some version of that, I was recording a webinar and got to the office, and my screen in my studio was all glitchy and my camera wasn't working. I was like 5 minutes before we started. Then we started the webinar, but I didn't think it was actually recording yet. But I think one of us hit start, and we're over here like sitting. I was like, "You want to test your slides?" And we're like chit-chatting pre-show. And I'm like, "Oh, actually, we're already live. Okay, hello, folks."
Wow.
But it was fun.
It's how we're adaptable.
It makes it a little bit more real, honestly. And you're like, no, it's not pre-recorded and pre-cut with it. So I'm like, that's fun.
Yep. Awesome. Great. Well, definitely appreciate you. And thanks for coming on.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.